I never thought I'd be writing about something like this, but it feels like I need to get it out somehow. I need to explain, even if no one will ever understand. Maybe writing it all down will help me make sense of everything. My name's Kate, I'm 30, and I've been married to James for 5 years now. We met in college, and I'll admit, we had that whirlwind romance at first. The passion, the excitement, everything was new and fresh. But over time, it faded. And I guess that's normal, right? Relationships aren't always full of fireworks, but we were doing okay. Or so, I thought. I had this sinking feeling that something was off for a while now, but I didn't want to admit it. James is a good guy, a great guy actually. He works hard, takes care of me, never raises his voice, always trying to make me feel safe and loved. But somewhere along the way, I stopped feeling seen by him. We'd get home, he'd head straight for his computer or watch TV, and I'd just fade into the background. Don't get me wrong, I wasn't asking for him to worship me, but I needed something more than the day-to-day routine. I wanted the excitement back. I wanted him to notice me like he used to, and I wanted to feel like I mattered more than just a companion on his never-ending grind of life. So, when James said he didn't want to go to that party, I was disappointed, but not surprised. He never liked to drink much, and he was always worried about making a fool of himself. But this time, it was different. He didn't even want to let me go by myself. He had this look on his face, like he didn't trust me, and that hurt. Because I thought we were fine. I thought I wasn't someone who needed to be watched over like that. But I told him it was just a casual get-together, some friends from work, nothing too crazy. In the end, I begged him to come. I promised him it'd be fun. He agreed, but not without grumbling. Are you sure you want me there? You know I'll just get too drunk and end up passing out. You'll have to take care of me, James said, already looking tired at the thought of a late night. I smiled. I don't mind. It'll be nice for us to get out of the house for once. And so we went. At first, everything seemed fine. James was being his usual self, half grumpy, half trying to be charming, but I could tell he wasn't fully into it. The moment he stepped into the house, he grabbed a drink, and then another, and then another. I watched as he got more and more buzzed, the familiar slur in his speech coming quicker than usual. I was used to this, of course. But tonight something felt different. I tried to ignore it at first. I mingled with some old friends, talked to people I hadn't seen in a while, and just tried to enjoy the atmosphere. But soon, it became clear that James wasn't going to be much company for me tonight. He was already too deep into his cups. I knew what was coming next. He'd get tired, and eventually, he'd pass out. As the night wore on, the room got louder, people were laughing and dancing, and I just felt out of place. I wasn't the life of the party anymore. I wasn't the carefree girl who used to thrive in these situations. I was just someone who had been forgotten. I looked at James, and he was slouched over, half asleep on the couch. And that's when I saw him. Garrett. He was this guy I used to work with a few years back. He was funny, confident, and always seemed to know how to make a girl feel special. When I saw him, I was instantly reminded of that feeling, the feeling of being desired. He wasn't too pushy, but there was this playful glint in his eye that made my heart flutter a little. I didn't mean to stare, but there he was, looking right at me. "Hey, Kate," he said, walking over with a smile. "Haven't seen you in forever. How've you been?" We talked for a few minutes, mostly catching up about work, but there was this tension, this electricity in the air between us. I could feel it. I didn't want to admit it, but I wanted more of it. I felt alive in a way I hadn't felt in so long. And then, before I could stop myself, I laughed at something he said, maybe too loud, maybe too long. But it felt good. Like I wasn't just James's wife. I was Kate again. I don't think I'd been Kate in a while. James was still passed out, oblivious. I glanced over at him, and for a split second, I thought about how easy it would be to just leave him here. Just let him sleep. But I pushed the thought away. Garrett had already leaned in a little closer, his body language too suggestive to ignore. "You know, Kate, we should hang out sometime," Garrett said, his voice low, with a hint of something else in it. I laughed again, but this time, I couldn't tell if it was nervous or excited. I shouldn't have been entertained by this. I shouldn't have even been considering it. But in that moment, I couldn't help myself. "Maybe," I said. "But I'm married, Garrett." His grin widened. "So what? Doesn't mean you can't have a little fun, right? Right?" I knew it was wrong. I knew it, but a part of me didn't care. That's when I felt it. The urge, The pull of desire, something I hadn't felt in a long time. And I couldn't ignore it. I never thought I'd end up in a situation like this. But when it happened, it felt like a switch had flipped in me. Everything became blurry, and I couldn't tell if I was acting on impulse, or if it was something I'd been longing for, even without realizing it. James was out cold on the couch, and I could see the chaos of the party around me. The music pounding, people laughing, glasses clinking. But somehow, it all felt so distant. My mind was caught in a whirlwind. I wanted to be anywhere but here. I wanted to feel something, anything, that wasn't the constant weight of routine that had been hanging over my head for months. Garrett, the guy who had started flirting with me earlier, was still lingering nearby. I didn't know why, but his presence was like a spark that ignited something in me. Maybe it was the way he looked at me, with that knowing, almost predatory look. Maybe it was the attention I hadn't realized I missed so much. Either way, it was pulling me in. But it wasn't just Garrett anymore. Two other guys, Tim and Josh, were standing by the punch bowl, chatting and laughing like they didn't have a care in the world. They noticed me standing there, looking lost, and I swear, I could feel them eyeing me. Tim, in particular, had that devil-may-care grin on his face, the kind of smile that said he was always up for trouble. Josh looked over at me and raised an eyebrow. "You okay?" he asked, his voice casual, but somehow seductive. He was leaning on the counter, his posture relaxed, but his eyes were anything but. They were sharp, scanning me like I was a puzzle he wanted to figure out. I didn't answer right away. My mind was still on James, lying unconscious on the couch. A part of me felt guilty, like I was betraying him, but the other part, no, the stronger part, was just tired. Tired of feeling invisible, tired of being second to everything else in his life. I could feel the weight of it pressing on me, and now these guys, Tim and Josh, were offering me a way out, a way to feel seen, to feel wanted. Josh didn't wait for my answer. He walked over to me with a confident stride and, with a half smile, whispered, "It's just us now, Kate. The night's still young. Why don't you come with us?" He glanced at Tim, who was already heading toward the stairs. "Let's have some fun upstairs." I felt the heat rising in my chest. My heart was racing, but not with panic. No, it was with excitement. The kind of excitement I hadn't felt in ages. I had to admit, it was tempting. More than tempting. I was in a position where I could escape everything. I could leave behind the husband who barely noticed me anymore and step into something that felt real, something full of energy and desire. Something new. Tim turned to me, his grin widening. "Don't worry. No one's going to stop you. You're free to do whatever you want." There was a part of me that still hesitated. My mind screamed at me to stop, to walk away. I should care. I should be thinking about James, about the vows we'd made, about the life we'd built. But all those thoughts felt distant, like they didn't belong to me anymore. I needed something else. I needed to feel alive. The hesitation lasted for only a moment. I swallowed hard, then nodded, almost without thinking. "Okay," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Let's go." Josh gave me a satisfied smile, and Tim's grin grew even wider. They both led me toward the stairs, and I followed them without looking back at James. I couldn't bring myself to. What was the point? He was still passed out, too drunk to care. I told myself it didn't matter. And in that moment, it didn't. I wasn't thinking about him, or about anything else. I was only thinking about what was happening in that instant, about what I wanted. We reached the top of the stairs, and they led me into a room. It was quieter up here, the sounds of the party muffled by the thick walls. The dim lighting, the soft music, it all felt like a cocoon, like the world outside didn't exist. I don't know why I let myself get swept away like that. Maybe it was the alcohol, or the way the guys were looking at me, or maybe it was just that I had been feeling so neglected for so long, so invisible, that it all felt like a dream I didn't want to wake up from. As soon as the door closed behind us, I felt the air change. The tension between us thickened. I could feel it in the way Josh stepped closer, the way Tim moved behind me. I didn't know what to do, what to expect. I was still in shock that I was even here. My body was telling me to run, but my mind was telling me to feel. To embrace the moment. Tim placed a hand on my shoulder, his fingers light but firm. "Relax," he said softly. "This is just for fun. No one's judging you here." His voice was soothing, almost comforting, and yet, I knew what he was really offering: a distraction. A distraction from everything I was too scared to face. Josh was already moving closer, his lips just brushing my ear as he spoke. "You're so beautiful, Kate," he said, his voice low and intimate. "I can't believe it's taken this long for you to let go." I didn't know how to respond. I didn't even know what I was feeling anymore. I was numb, but at the same time, everything felt too intense. It was like the world was spinning faster, and I was just along for the ride. Before I could stop it, my body betrayed me. I kissed Josh. It wasn't something I planned. It wasn't a decision. It was just there, like I couldn't help it. I didn't want to think about the consequences. I didn't want to think about James, about the life I was about to destroy. I just wanted to feel. I wanted to escape. Tim moved in behind me, his hands finding their way to my waist. The touch sent a shiver down my spine. I pulled back slightly, my mind struggling to catch up with what was happening, but before I could stop it, I was giving in again. I knew this was wrong. I knew it. But in that moment, I didn't care. We spent the next few minutes lost in it, and I don't remember much about what happened next. Just the heat, the desire, the overwhelming sense of being wanted, needed. It wasn't about them. It was about me. For once, I was the center of attention. For once, I wasn't invisible. But as the minutes stretched on, the weight of my actions began to settle on me like a heavy blanket. And the more I felt that weight, the more I wanted to forget. So I did. I forgot about everything. When I finally walked back downstairs, everything felt like it was in slow motion. I could feel the pounding of my heart in my chest, my legs unsteady, and the dizzying sense of regret starting to claw at me. But I pushed it down. That's when I saw him. James was awake, his eyes still groggy, but sharp as soon as they landed on me. I froze. And I knew everything was about to change. He stared at me, confusion flooding his face. But there was something else there too. Something darker. Something I couldn't ignore. I don't know what I expected, but when I saw James sitting up on the couch, still dazed from the alcohol, everything inside me froze. My breath caught in my throat. Time seemed to slow as I walked down the stairs, my heart hammering in my chest. I could feel the weight of what had just happened pressing down on me, the heaviness of guilt crawling up my throat. And yet, there was no turning back now. James's eyes locked onto mine as soon as I stepped into the room. His gaze was sharp, confused, but there was something else. Something I couldn't place, but it felt like suspicion. A knowing. I wanted to look away, to pretend everything was fine, but I couldn't. His gaze never wavered. I stopped in my tracks at the foot of the stairs, and I could feel the tension in the air. It was like a thick, suffocating fog. I could barely hear the music from the party downstairs, just the rushing in my ears as the weight of the moment crushed down on me. James sat up straighter, his eyes narrowing. He was still wiping sleep from his face, but there was no mistaking the discomfort in his expression as he saw me walking down with Tim and Josh behind me. What's going on, Kate?" His voice was rough from sleep, but there was a bite to it. He was trying to piece things together, his mind probably racing, but the confusion was there. His gaze darted between me and the guys, and I could feel his unease. It was almost palpable, thick enough to cut through the air. I didn't know what to say. The words stuck in my throat, like they were too heavy to speak. The silence dragged on, the weight of my choices suffocating me. I looked at him, seeing the man I had loved, the man who had tried so hard to make everything work between us. And in that moment, I realized something. I had betrayed him. "James? I didn't mean." I started, but the words felt useless. They were hollow. They couldn't explain the storm inside me. How could I even start? I didn't even understand it myself. James stood up, now more alert, the confusion in his eyes slowly turning into something sharper. Hurt. Anger. The kind of anger I had never seen in him before. He looked at me like he didn't recognize me, and in some twisted way, I realized. I didn't recognize myself either. "You didn't mean what, Kate?" His voice was cold now, sharper than I'd ever heard it. "Did you really think I wouldn't see? Did you think I wouldn't notice what was going on here?" My stomach twisted. He knew. He knew. The realization hit me like a slap in the face. He was awake enough to see me walk down the stairs with two guys, laughing, clearly not just hanging out. What had I been thinking? There was no way I could hide it now. There was no way out. "James, please." I tried to speak, but my voice wavered, and I felt small and powerless under his gaze. Tim and Josh, standing a few feet behind me, seemed to sense the tension, and they both shifted uncomfortably. Tim, ever the cocky one, put his hands in his pockets, but I could see the way he was trying to avoid James's gaze. It was clear none of us were prepared for this. James turned to them. "You? Both of you?" he said, his voice barely containing the fury now bubbling to the surface. What the hell do you think you're doing? Tim raised an eyebrow, clearly not bothered, but Josh, to his credit, looked a bit uncomfortable. He shifted from foot to foot, his gaze flicking between me and James. We didn't mean to. Josh started, but his words trailed off when he saw the storm in James's eyes. Don't even start. James snapped. This isn't about you two. This is about my wife, making a fool of me. The words landed like punches. I flinched, feeling the sting, the weight of everything I'd just done crashing down on me all at once. I thought I could handle it. I thought I could walk away from it all. But I was wrong. James looked at me then, his eyes burning with anger and something else. Something deeper. How long has this been going on, Kate? He asked, his voice low like he was trying to keep himself from shouting. How long have you been lying to me? How long have I been nothing but a fool in your eyes? I felt my knees go weak. I didn't know how to answer him. What could I say? What excuse could I possibly give that would make any of this okay? The guilt surged through me, drowning out everything else. It wasn't just about what I'd done in the moment, it was about everything that had led up to it. My own neglect, my loneliness, my desperation for something more. I had pushed him away, and now I was paying the price. I didn't mean for it to happen like this, I said, my voice breaking. I couldn't look at him. The shame was too much. I'm sorry. I don't know why I did it. James, I don't know. I've been so lost. James's face contorted in pain. He didn't say anything for a long moment, just stood there, staring at me as though he couldn't recognize me anymore. I couldn't read his expression. There was hurt. There was betrayal. But there was also something else. Something I wasn't sure I could fix. He turned to Tim and Josh. Get out. Both of you. His voice was a command now, cold and final. Tim and Josh exchanged quick glances before backing out of the room, leaving us alone. I was left standing there, completely exposed, feeling more vulnerable than I ever had in my life. James took a deep breath, his chest rising and falling as he struggled to control his anger. His hands clenched into fists, but he didn't strike out. He just stood there, looking at me like I was a stranger. I thought we had something, he said quietly, his voice thick with emotion. I thought we were okay. Kate, I thought we were better than this. And that hit me harder than anything else he'd said. Because it was true. I had convinced myself that everything was fine, that I could keep ignoring the cracks in our relationship. But now, everything was broken. The foundation of trust we'd built over 5 years was shattered, and there was no way to put it back together. I'm so sorry, I whispered, tears welling up in my eyes. I never meant to hurt you. I thought I was just looking for something I didn't know I needed. But I was wrong. I was selfish. I'm so sorry. James didn't reply. He just turned and walked out of the room, his footsteps echoing in the silence, and I stood there, frozen, knowing that everything had changed. There was no undoing this. There was no going back. I had lost him. And I knew it. I stood there for what felt like hours, just staring at the door James had walked through. The air in the room was suffocating, thick with the weight of my actions. The silence that followed was deafening. I had destroyed everything. Every ounce of trust. Every bit of love that had once held us together. And for what? A momentary escape. A fleeting feeling of being seen. I could barely even remember what had driven me to make that decision. I only knew one thing now. I had broken something irreplaceable. I took a few steps toward the couch, then stopped, feeling like I was wading through molasses. The room felt too big, too empty. The sound of the party downstairs seemed miles away, like a distant memory, disconnected from the reality of what I'd just done. The buzz I had felt earlier, the adrenaline, the reckless abandon. All of it had faded into nothingness, replaced by a gnawing ache in the pit of my stomach. The reality of my betrayal hit me harder than I could have anticipated. I had kissed Josh, touched Tim, let them both into my life in a way I should have never allowed. But even more than the physical actions, I had let myself get swept up in something I hadn't even fully understood. I had wanted to feel alive, but all I'd done was kill the one thing that had once made me feel whole. My marriage, my connection with James. I collapsed onto the couch, burying my face in my hands. I couldn't stop the tears from coming. They came in waves, grief, guilt, regret, and I couldn't push them away. I had ruined everything, and now there was no undoing it. I heard the sound of footsteps coming from upstairs, soft at first, then louder. I looked up, startled, expecting it to be James. But instead, it was Tim, stepping tentatively into the room. Kate. His voice was low, unsure. He looked awkward, almost out of place, like he realized he didn't belong here anymore. Are you okay? I blinked, my vision blurry through the tears. I wiped my face quickly, angry at myself for breaking down in front of him. No. I whispered. I'm not okay. Tim shifted uncomfortably, glancing around the room, as if trying to figure out what to say. I could see the unease in his posture. He wasn't the guy who cared about emotional depth. He was the one who would have walked away the moment things got too serious. And here I was, sitting in the wreckage of my own decisions, too shattered to care about what he thought. I'm sorry about what happened, Tim said after a long pause, his voice softening. I didn't mean for this to turn out like this. I shook my head, not wanting to hear his words. They felt empty. He wasn't sorry for what happened to me. He was sorry it had gotten complicated. I didn't need his pity. I needed something real. Just go, Tim, I said, the words coming out harsher than I intended. Please. He hesitated for a moment, then turned and walked out, the door closing behind him with a soft click. And then there was just silence again. It was the loudest silence I had ever experienced. Time passed slowly. I couldn't say how long I sat there, lost in my thoughts, drowning in my guilt. I thought about what had brought me to this moment. I thought about James, the man I had married, the man I had once adored. Where had I gone wrong? How had I let myself stray so far? How could I have been so blind to what I had? I tried to rationalize it. I told myself that I hadn't wanted to hurt him, that it was a mistake. I told myself that he hadn't been the partner I needed, that he had neglected me emotionally. But none of that mattered. It didn't change the fact that I had hurt him, betrayed him, and there was no excuse for that. Not really. I didn't know how long I'd been sitting there, but eventually, the sound of a car door slamming outside snapped me out of my trance. James had left. I hadn't even heard him leave, but it was clear that he had gone. I stood up quickly, my body moving on autopilot. I needed to fix this. I needed to talk to him. But when I reached for my phone, I saw the missed texts, the messages from James. I need space. Please don't contact me for a while. Those words hit me like a slap in the face. I stared at the screen for a moment, numb, as if the words weren't even real. How could he need space after everything we had been through? After everything I had just done to him? I let the phone slip from my hands, feeling my knees buckle beneath me. I collapsed to the floor, my chest tight, my heart pounding painfully in my ears. The suffocating weight of reality was too much to bear. I had done this. I had thrown everything away. I thought of James again. His face, the hurt in his eyes when he looked at me, the pain that had seeped into his voice when he'd asked how long this had been going on. How long had I been deceiving him, living this lie? How could I have been so selfish? I didn't know what to do. There was no easy way to fix this. There were no quick solutions or neat answers. There were only broken pieces, pieces of my marriage, pieces of my own soul, and I knew that I had to start by picking them up, no matter how impossible it seemed. But first, I had to talk to him. I had to apologize. I had to face the consequences of what I'd done. I didn't know if it was too late, but I couldn't just let him slip away without a fight. I grabbed my phone again, taking a deep breath, and typed out a message to James. I'm so sorry. I made a huge mistake. Please, when you're ready, let me talk to you. I don't know what to say, but I want to fix this. I'll be here when you're ready. I stared at the screen for a long time, unsure whether to send it. But eventually, my fingers hovered over the send button, and I pressed it. It was all I could do now. I waited. And as I sat there waiting for something to happen, I realized that this was the beginning of the hardest journey I'd ever face. The days that followed were the longest of my life. Each minute seemed to stretch on forever, filled with uncertainty and fear of what might come next. I waited for James to respond, but I didn't know if he would, if he even could. Our relationship had been so fragile lately, built on unspoken tension and silence. And now, I had broken the trust that had once held us together. The texts I sent him went unanswered for the first couple of days, and I didn't push him. I knew he needed time, just as I needed time to fully understand the consequences of my actions. But the waiting, it was unbearable. I kept replaying everything in my head: the party, the guys, the decision to walk away from him. Every thought, every choice felt like a weight I couldn't lift. I was drowning in guilt, wondering if I'd ever be able to make things right. Then, on the third day, I woke up to a text from James. I'm coming over. We need to talk. I froze when I saw those words. I wasn't sure if I was relieved or terrified. I took a shaky breath and typed a quick reply. Okay, I'll be here. When James arrived at the apartment, it felt like the world had stopped moving. He looked different. More tired. His eyes wary, but there was something else too. A softness that wasn't there before. The man who stood in front of me wasn't the same angry, hurt man I'd seen that night. This was the man I had married. The one who still cared, despite everything I had done. He didn't say anything at first. He just walked into the living room and sat down on the couch, his gaze never leaving the floor. I wanted to rush over to him, to beg for his forgiveness, but I stayed where I was, giving him the space he needed. The silence between us was heavy, suffocating, but I knew it was the only way to let him process what had happened. After a long pause, James looked up at me. His voice was low, almost strained. Kata? He stopped, swallowed hard, and I could see the weight of the words he was about to say. I'm sorry. The words hit me like a punch in the stomach. I blinked in confusion, not sure I heard him right. What? I whispered. I should have been more present. He continued, his voice shaky. I should have noticed what was happening. I should have listened to you, Kate. You were clearly struggling and I didn't see it. I got so caught up in my own stuff. In work, in my routine. I took you for granted. I sat there, stunned, unsure how to process what he was saying. This wasn't how I expected this conversation to go. I should have paid more attention to you. James went on, and I let you slip through the cracks. And when you did what you did, it was a wake-up call for me. I see now that I let things go too far. I took you for granted, and I didn't notice how you were feeling. How alone you were. I didn't know what to say. I hadn't expected him to apologize. I thought it would be all about what I had done, but here he was, acknowledging his own part in what had happened. I'm so sorry, Kate, he said, his eyes softening. I never meant for this to happen. I'll do better. I'll be better. But I need to know you're in this too. Are you? Tears filled my eyes as I nodded, my chest tight. Yes, I'm in this. I'm so sorry, James. I was wrong. I shouldn't have let it get that far. I was lost, and instead of talking to you about it, I made the worst choice of my life. I was selfish, and I'm so sorry. The room felt lighter somehow, and James finally moved toward me. He pulled me into a hug, holding me tight like he was afraid I might slip away again. I could feel his heartbeat, steady and real, and for the first time in days, I felt like I could breathe again. I love you, Kate, he whispered into my hair. And I'm willing to work through this. I don't want to lose you. Not like this. I love you too. I replied, my voice thick with emotion. I don't deserve you, but I want to make it right. I want to rebuild us. And so, we did. It wasn't easy. Rebuilding trust after something like this takes time. We spent the next few weeks talking. Really talking? About what went wrong, about the cracks in our relationship, and about the things we had neglected. We went to couples therapy, not to fix everything overnight, but to start healing. And slowly, bit by bit, things started to shift. We learned to communicate better, to see each other in a way we hadn't in years. We started making time for each other again, for us, not just as husband and wife, but as individuals who mattered to one another. I can't say everything's perfect. Relationships never are. But I know we're stronger now than we were before. And as for that night, it stays with me, a reminder of what can happen when we stop paying attention, when we let the little things slide and take each other for granted. It was a painful lesson, but one I needed to learn. James forgave me. And somehow, against all odds, I forgave myself. We're still a work in progress, but we're trying, and that's what matters. In the end, we made it through the worst of it. The worst of me. And here we are, together again, learning to love each other in ways we hadn't before. It hasn't been easy. But I'm hopeful. Because, after everything, I know we both still want this. We want us,